Now you can watch The Fan. Check out the KFAN YouTube channel for exclusive videos, in-depth takes, initials and password games, and behind-the-scenes content. Very easy to find. Search KFAN on YouTube and hit subscribe today.
I'm pretty sure I asked the chief one of the last times we had him on during the ICE surge this question, but one of the criticisms, I'm looking at a lot of the stuff that's being written in reaction to the news on Chief O'Hara resigning, has to do with, okay, you know, what kind of grade would you give him? What did you like? What did you dislike about his service, his leadership? And the overarching theme now on the criticism is should have stepped in more on ICE. And my recollection of it, in fact, maybe I'll text the chief, or he can text me if he's still listening, was that as much as, and the chief was every bit as blunt about the ICE surge as anything else that he and I talk about. He hated it. He excoriated the measures taken. But I don't remember him saying that he thought the local police department was in any kind of position to do what now a number of people, in hindsight easily, were asking them to do. The blame should be kept on the individuals and the policy responsible out of Washington. I mean, otherwise you're asking for open confrontations between federal authorities and police, locally, I guess, leading to what? Another 30,000 National Guard being called in here? Do people ever think about the ramifications of, in their righteous indignation about what took place? You got to think. And part of my hesitation on all of this, these stories, is that, I mean, I'm looking at some quotes from Robin Wansley. She and the mayor do not get along real well. That's okay. That's legal. But, and certainly there's ammunition here to hammer the mayor and the police chief. But when I read a quote from her that the blame for the department's continued instability lies within Mayor Fry himself, what's the instability? Has that been one of the charges on his administration, the chief's administration, since he's been here? That's the instability? He goes on, or she goes on to say that the resignation should be a wake-up call for Fry and a push for him to take ownership of how the department operates and how it can be reformed. We're back to, this isn't just about whatever took place here at the end. It's just not. It's about individuals who I don't think have the best interests of this city at heart when it comes to how to best improve law enforcement and to put it in a better place. There's a couple quotes here, too. They went, Louis Krause has a piece where he asks for reviews in the Whittier neighborhood, reaction. And a couple of folks criticize on the basis it's great news that he's out. I'll continue to say, man, be careful what you wish for here. It's so easy but that's the danger of when you use the sort of purity test approach and the one item where you think he didn't do well, and you expand out from that to give him a bad letter grade, I just don't think you're taking this stuff as seriously as it needs to be taken, or even giving anybody a chance to do the job, even close to doing the job. Then there's a quote from Tay Sanders, a 33-year-old Minneapolis native who is homeless. O'Hara did the best that he could do. Sucks that he's stepping down. As a black man, Sanders said he's been impressed with how O'Hara has implemented reforms in the years following the murder of George Floyd. Is he the last word either? No. But overall, beyond the shouting and the screaming and the individual, well, what about this time? I thought the signs were favorable. When he was asked to come here and do specific things to improve trust. And there's a number of people, I believe, who think that that's exactly where this was headed. overall. Doesn't mean there weren't mistakes that were indeed being made. I have to find, there's a quote from another city council member I can't find now on this same subject. Another texter wanted us to ask the chief, okay, is it better to go completely off, out of the box in terms of replacement? Do you stay local? Does it have to be somebody who's been in a big metro force? I honestly don't know what the answer is at this point. I mean, obviously the job will be filled. Somebody will take it, right?
Yeah.
One way or the other. But Godspeed to anybody in this position. Because, again, so many activists are about one aspect of the job, one issue. They can't see past that single issue. And therefore, you're not going to find the person, because ultimately, to me, in this job, you have to be evaluated in much more broadly on a number of different fronts. Doesn't mean you're not above. Doesn't mean you're above criticism. Doesn't mean you can't have made some mistakes. But if you reduce, and that's what a lot of these quotes have done in recent weeks, is reduce to a single case, for example. When you factor in, as the chief told us, what he walked into, city burning literally and figuratively. Godspeed finding the perfect person who is going to be able to accommodate all of the politicians who make it their point, especially if it's somebody who's considered allied with the mayor, to get the job, to have any real honest chance to get the job done and to be evaluated, fairly, I would say. I can't find the VTalk quote I was looking for, but I'll find it eventually. Anything else you want to add on this controversy?
No, not particularly. It's always good to hear from the chief, though, because you're going to get exactly what he's thinking, right? We got that when he was the chief. Now that he's retired, you get even more of just the unfiltered, unvarnished. Here's the position from my seat. That's why, and my experience, and why I think this and X, Y, Z. It's why he's a treasured guest. It's a no-brainer to have him on a day like this.
Here's the VTalk quote that got my attention. It's fascinating to me. This again is from StarTribune.com. Latricia Vita, among the first to question publicly or privately whether O'Hara deserved to be renominated for a second term. She says that in March she met with the mayor to relay concerns about the chief's 22 pending misconduct complaints. And then, again, I don't want to go too deep in those weeds, but that sounds like a lot. But then you're back to anybody in this town that in 2026 is going to have automatically 12 of those without even lifting a finger. It's the nature of it. So I got to know more about them rather than, oh, my God, what does that number say? It might be daunting, but I need to know more. But here's what she goes on to say. She says her reservations grew after O'Hara's recent presentation at a city council hearing where he struggled to answer basic questions about why MPD overspent its budget. Again, wasn't that in large measure related to the extra overtime work? Ironically, that we had many citizens demanding you got to be out there as much as possible. That's surprising that would have a big impact on that number. But here's the other quote. I'm glad he resigned because Minneapolis police have been doing a fantastic job at trying to build up community support and trust. And things like this certainly set us back. Well, I mean, I'd ask her as a follow-up then, I guess I get her point here on the back end about this particular story.
Yeah.
And as the chief told us, if he is interfering in an investigation into him, he's probably done. That's probably inevitable. But if she believes Minneapolis police have been doing a fantastic job at trying to build up community support and trust,
where's the tone set?
Does he get any of that?
Right.
Any of that at all? No. It's blood in the water in terms of city council. Now, I don't think she's in the top of that list, but other city council members, it's blood in the water. We got him. We got the mayor. He's been at us. He goes after us. We go after him. We got him. Blood in the water. There's no chance we're going to say anything that might be positive about the Chiefs' performance over a period of time because he's too closely aligned to the person that we despise. And so there's your city government working for the good of everybody in the community. Let's get a break in now. I'll get to that other story for Gaardsy and others. It won't just be for him. So I don't want you not coming back thinking, well, I don't care if it's a story that affects Gaardsy. It affects more than Gaardsy. He's a good example of it, and I want to get his reaction to it. But there are a number of others, I think, who might be interested in responding to the same controversy. Don't go away.
Bumper to Bumper with Dan Barrero on The Fan.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY Traffic Center. This report is sponsored by
Ticket giveaways and show highlights. Follow at KFAN 1003 on Instagram, TikTok, and X.
All right, I'm not going to tell you who wrote this until the end because I fear that it will, if I start with who wrote it, it will prejudice, sadly, in this polarizing culture, the reaction to it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm listening.
So I'm going to save that. My 14-year-old son competes in a serious multi-state hockey league. During his 5-month, 60-game season, he travels up and down the East Coast on weekends, and I occasionally have to miss work to watch him. His name's Ryder. He isn't likely to play in the NHL, nor is he interested in devoting his entire childhood to chasing a pro career as a goalie. He still plays other sports, flag football, basketball, and golf, which sounds about right for an 8th grader. But for the owners of the Atlantic Hockey Federation, the youth hockey association that pulls together elite teams from Connecticut and many other states as far west as Arizona, kids sports is a cutthroat business, a way to make a handful of people very rich. Black Bear Sports Group owns the AHF, the Atlantic Hockey Federation, several other youth hockey leagues, and many of the rinks where the teams practice and play. Methodically and quietly, Black Bear, backed by the private equity firm Blackstreet Capital Holdings, is tightening its stranglehold over the youth hockey infrastructure along the eastern seaboard. Whereas Ryder sees hockey as character-building fun, Black Bear's objective is far simpler: to make a grotesque amount of money. I first came face to face with this reality when I noticed a parent from our team sheepishly recording his son from a dark corner of the rink during one of our league games. Because our team travels so much, both parents or other relatives can't always attend. Streaming games for grandparents or recording a child's shifts on the ice seems like a natural way to share in these moments. I approached the parent and I asked, why wasn't he standing in a better spot? Wish I could, he said. I heard we could be docked points in the standings if parents are caught filming their kids. I was stunned. When my father recently uploaded all of our old home movies to the cloud, the first videos I pulled up were of my grade school basketball games and tennis matches. What I learned next shocked me more. Black Bear had installed cameras in each rink that feed video footage into a subscription service, Black Bear TV, that charges parents as much as $37 a month. Subscribers can watch games remotely and must pay for the premium tier to share highlights such as their daughter's game-winning goal with relatives. Of course, Black Bear could have allowed parents to live stream games to family members and still made money off the low-cost AI-operated camera system, but that apparently wasn't enough for the executives, so the company banned parents from streaming games for grandparents or the mother or father who didn't drive 2 hours to the rink. Investor money has warped youth sports in another way. It has individualized and professionalized the experience. Black Bear creates a youth hockey experience that feels like the NHL. Youth League's website keeps meticulously updated standings, individual statistical leaders pages. Kids on our team always know exactly where they rank in the race for the points, goals, and assist titles. And if I'm honest, he admits, I probably spend too much time on those pages too. And the winners of the league receive heavy embossed rings and championship hats, just like the Stanley Cup winners do. The result, the youth league hockey ends up being about the players, not about the team. Ryder never plays with the same kids from one season to the next. Each year, players are reshuffled so that the best kids land on the most elite teams. If parents feel their child are unfairly cut, they move to another program, sometimes far from home, just to secure the best placement. The high-pressure environment, driven by parents and profit-hungry owners alike, has produced a youth sports culture in which profit and individual achievement matter more than teamwork or character building. One last paragraph. This was not always the case. For most of the past century, youth sports were managed primarily by local park departments, parent-led leagues, and nonprofit groups such as Pop Warner and the Catholic Youth Organization, CYO. Parents' dues went to support their work, not to maximize outside investors' returns. The extent of commercialization was limited to a handful of local businesses donating a few $100s to sponsor teams. The Big Wheel Restaurant.
Yeah, your team.
Sponsored my basketball team that my father coached. He mentions my very first Little League team was sponsored by Dylan Baxter Funeral Home. And our main rival was a team sponsored by Dylan Baxter's main rival in the funeral business, Diespo Funeral Chapel.
I love that.
Youth sports were mostly treated as a public good. It goes on from there. I know we've touched on this before.
Is that one of the USA Today stories?
This was a story in the Atlantic. Okay. And I can now tell you that the writer of said piece is a United States Senator named Chris Murphy.
Yes. Okay. Well, because USA Today did a huge story about this company, this Black Bear company, and what they're doing to hockey and how they've corporatized all of it. And they basically purchased all kinds of rinks. I think they get into Michigan now. And at first it seems great because it costs a lot of money to do a rink and upkeep, and there's rinks that are dying. And so they take the lifeline, and then all the community stuff is essentially pushed out, and this private stuff gets brought in. And the stories are legendary. And this USA Today story piggybacks on this. Before we dive deeper, because, yes, I obviously have a lot of thoughts on this as a hockey parent and as a sports parent and as a former athlete. Oh, good for me. Minnesota needs to cling to every rink they possibly can and never let Black Bear in this state ever. Now, I don't think they will. I think we're very proud of our mom and pop-ish, although there's some craziness that we can talk about. We can't sell any rink to the Black Bear people. You just can't. So you had heard about Black Bear. I just read about them 2 or 3 weeks ago. Okay. There was a story that the USA Today, I can't remember the writer, I'll find it, but it's mostly about the CEO who doesn't even run it anymore because he's gotten into some trouble for some financial stuff. Okay. His companies had been in trouble. He's technically, I don't think, involved anymore, but his company is. And yeah, they have made it much more difficult to maintain the community stuff. Their argument would be, well, the community stuff was dying. We at least are giving a chance for rinks to stay alive, which I get, but also the story's pretty exhaustive. But anyway, I would just say anybody that owns a rink, has a rink, worried about a rink, find another way than if Black Bear shows up on the caller ID, send it to voicemail. Block it. That's what I would say. Yes. Or buyer beware. But anyway. So in your view, there is a big distinction still, or a pretty significant distinction between what is described in this piece and what we have here in Minnesota? I would say, and I'm still new to the hockey game. Right. I always say I'm the only person from Edina that doesn't know how to skate. I would say there are plenty of corporatization options, but at the roots of it, I think Minnesota's still trying to make it more community-based. Trying to hold on. Yeah. I think they're trying to hold on as best as they possibly can. But there are, even as I say that, my son plays for a community team, and this summer he also played for another team. He doesn't do that during the winter because there's also guys, and my son's 9, by the way, that plays hockey, that play the community hockey, but then are running around playing on other teams throughout the year. So there are plenty of corporate options. However, at the heart of it, I still think Minnesota is at least hanging on better than most at the community aspect. There was a big Boston Globe story a few years ago that I've yet to be able to read because I'm not a subscriber and they don't even have like the dollar deal to get yourself in. But it's lamenting what has happened in Massachusetts, kind of along the same lines as the story that you're talking about, and holding up Minnesota as still an example that community stuff can still exist. It might not be what we grew up on, but it's still closer to what existed, for generations as opposed to what you're seeing there. It comes off as a fairly frightening trend. And I generally don't like going down the road of big bad corporation, always evil. It's too easy. It's fun. We love playing that game, but a lot of times it's a little more complicated than that. It's hard to see anything complicated
about these kinds of stories and anecdotes where you go, my God. Again, I guess it's not illegal, but then there has to be an understanding that we're so far from what we in our what's the word I'm looking for? Nostalgic mind think of regarding this whole rite of passage of being a kid and playing games. We are so far removed from it. It's stupid. I mean, it really is. It's beyond the pale. Because look, we've kidded and I've made jokes about people in front of me wanting to like tape a whole concert or tape a whole graduation, videotape, whatever, where you got to get over your kid a little bit, or you got to find a place where you're off to the side. But what's being described in here is that the notion is so audacious that you have to be afraid to tape.
Yes. Because
there's sanctioning that's going to be involved. We're going to lose points. How is that sustainable? Can that possibly be justified? You want to literally grab the individuals responsible for that kind of stupid ass policy and tase them.
Yeah.
I mean, so what are you doing?
Yeah. And unfortunately, in those areas, there's not a lot of other options. That's right. Kind of what I was saying. Yeah. And everybody agrees we have massive problems. That's universal.
Yes.
The problem is no one knows how to, and everyone kind of knows the solutions. We all think we know the solution. By the way, there's big business talking about this big business. There's Healthy Sports Parents podcast.
Yes.
So
I'm not surprised.
There's some irony there. And in my algorithm, that's basically all it is on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter. Because I watch those videos because they relate directly to what I'm going through, my wife's going through, all of our friends are going through. There's not a lot of other options in some of these towns and some of these areas. And everybody knows that there are problems. Everybody really knows what the problems are. The solutions are really the most difficult part. And the simplest way I can explain it from my observations on any sport, because we have kids playing all kinds of sports, and people joke about all my jobs. Whether I have 5 or 6 jobs, my 7th or 8th job is organizing the kids' activities and making sure everything fits. And this kid's doing enough. This kid maybe isn't doing as much here. What season is this? Can it all fit in the schedule? I work in the afternoon, so I'm a non-factor. I can't help with driving, finding all of these things going. There's no middle ground between, I think I want to try this sport. I like this sport. I want to do this sport a little bit. And then I'm going to dedicate my entire life and my family's mortgage to this sport. There is no middle ground between there.
I have a multitude of texts. Let's just go to 42 here on this subject. The stats on Minnesota community hockey model are unbelievable. I assume that means to the good or the bad?
I think the good. I would assume the good. A lot of kids play. I know they do their best to try to make it affordable, especially for like the first couple years, so that you can try it without having to write a huge check. There are a lot of ways to get equipment. We've used a lot of equipment that was hand-me-down, that was donated, because you're just trying to figure out if they even like it. You shouldn't have to go spend $1,000 on all the stuff. So I think we do a pretty good job, especially related to other states with hockey specifically. Other sports, I don't know. Hockey, I think we do a decent job of trying to make it as accessible as we can.
651 guy writes, look at the Skate It Forward project of the Minnesota Wild Foundation. They're working to save community hockey.
That's one of them, yeah.
Hockey guy from Delano here. I would highly encourage you to have Mike Snee of the Minnesota Wild Foundation Skate It Forward project on. Maybe we will at some point in the future. I'm from Texas. Listening to this story, it's exactly what's happening with all sports down south, especially football and baseball. I don't think that's probably at this point would surprise anybody, correct?
It's happening with basketball. It's happening with lacrosse. It's gymnastics. It's swimming. It's all of them. It's everybody. Everything is big business out. We could do 5 hours on this and not take a break.
That's correct.
That's just how crazy it is.
Youth sports are a $41 billion industry, according to the New York Times. It's become about adults making money off kids, lying to them, clubs, and lead to a selfish generation of athletes that can only be blamed on the adults setting this whole thing in motion. $50 weekend wristband prices to watch my 8th grade daughter's AAU basketball tournaments each weekend.
Yep.
Unbelievable, which is like, another subject for sure.
Yep.
It's like you said, the sticky wicket is that some of these companies they're swooping in, can come and say, well, it's dead without us. You can moan and groan, but it's dead. And that's where I guess it gets to what the individual structures are that are in place in each state.
Right.
And maybe we are a little ahead of the curve on trying to discourage the possibility that we're inevitably down the same road as Chris Murphy is writing about his son's hockey team.
Right. We have strong community hockey here for sure. And I'll defend a couple of groups. Because it's easy to just paint with the broad brush and say everything is a cash grab. Everybody's out for their own money. Mm-hmm. No one cares about the kids. Are there programs where that is certainly the case? Absolutely. Absolutely. In every single sport. And as parents, you have to sift through that as best you possibly can. And there's been times when I've taken my kid to something, and within 10 minutes, I can say, this to me feels like a money grab. This to me feels like not what I want my kid to be a part, and they don't do it anymore. But so I'll defend. But there are also on the other side, I think a lot of people and a lot of companies that are doing it what I would consider the right way. That they are about the kids, they are about the development. Of course, they're making money, they're making a living. Like I don't blame them for that. But I can also know, okay, this is how much this costs compared to this place where this costs this. What's this coach saying? Does coach show up on the ice 5 minutes early, or does he mosey out 10 minutes late? You know, you can find, if you're paying attention, I think you can identify the cash grabs pretty quickly. And so at least I think I am. Maybe I'm a sucker. Maybe I'm the sucker at the table. But the other group I'll defend is the parents in general, because the other group you hear about is, well, everyone's chasing a scholarship.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks their kid's the next Kirill Kaprizov. Are there those people? Again, absolutely. But I don't think it represents the majority of the parents that have their kids in sports. For me personally, a couple of things. I want my kids to play as long as possible. That means they have to be at a certain level if they want to play, even through middle school, to make a team where it's competitive and they want to play, where they can't just go to rec because they don't want to do that. They didn't like it. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not that I think they're probably listening, so I'm not going to name my kids, but I can tell you right now what they are capable of and what they're not capable of,
right? And
when their careers are going to end. And I think for me, it's just I want them to learn accountability, discipline, time management, being a teammate, failing, growing through that, all of that. I think the vast majority of parents are that way, but there's no other path. There's not. They
get stuck. Yeah, that's
you get stuck kind of going on the hamster wheel of, am I doing enough to just let them keep up with their friends and their peers just so they can play as long as they can possibly play? Well, not that they can play in the NHL, and Lou Nanny's going to talk about them one day.
Yeah.
So
well, the ancillary, there's several components to this, and some of these components we've discussed before. There, and you can maybe speak to this too, because you got 3 kids who are going through all this. But you know, the little league I played and the little league basketball that I played, which was basically until junior high school, that was the end of it for me. There was, I'm trying to think how to best put this. I don't think there was a single time I ever remember seeing a parent at a practice.
Oh yeah.
And in fact, in terms of the basketball games, my dad showed up because he was coaching us one year. Mm-hmm. I don't think my mom ever went.
Right.
And you could say, well, what kind of support is that? But as odd as it sounds, I do think there's a mentality among parents that has developed that's not healthy for the kids in what it projects, and that is, I want to be everywhere. I want to be wherever you are. If you're practicing, I want to be there every time. And it sounds like I'm saying don't support your kid. I'm really not. What I'm asking is whether it's actually healthier for the kid if there's greater separation, if at all possible.
Absolutely.
Where, okay, you're playing. Okay, how'd it go yesterday? Oh, okay, good. I'll see you. Maybe I'll go to a game in 2 or 3 weeks, as opposed to what we have developed and encouraged, which I end up, and this is a separate subject, actually, but it's all kind of related.
It is. Parental involvement, absolutely. And yes, it is related, and it is completely unhealthy for parents to be at every single practice.
Gotta be.
Or every single game. And it's not what we grew up in. And honestly, that's been the biggest battle we've had with our kids when we started a couple of years ago, just dropping them off. Like, we're not at every practice because the kid, what's the kid doing when you're at every practice? They're looking up at you.
No doubt.
Well, first of all, even as a dad, you're like, I'm always like, is my kid screwing around in the line? Is he hustling? Is he listening to the coach? Like those things. And if he's not doing that, then I just get aggravated. Like if he's making it difficult on the coach. So it's not good for me to be in there.
Yes.
Not that, he didn't back check hard enough or he's not, he didn't hit the guy when he should have. Like, it's more about the stuff about respecting the coach where that would just aggravate me. But kids need the freedom, in my opinion, to experiment, to explore, to try things without feeling like their parents up there in the section watching them. And honestly, the coach should have the freedom to coach them how they want. Now, obviously, we know about bad coaches and abusive coaches and all that, and I don't think we have any of those, so I'm not worried about that. But 100%, there's too much. It's the helicopter parent stuff.
Yes, which we've obviously examined many times.
So I do, yeah. So we've, I think, tried to make an effort to not be games. You can go to, obviously, but they're with 3 kids. You can't be at every game. And that's got to be okay for the kid has to understand that, too. That's part of, I think, the whole thing. It's not all about you. Yeah, of course, we'd love to have every grandma and grandpa and aunt and uncle and cousin be at every one of your games. I'm sure they'd love to do that, but that's not how it works. So when we're there, we're going to cheer for you. When we're not, we're going to see how it went. You can watch streaming services. I've done it here. While I'm sitting here, if there's a game at 5:30, I'll pop it on and see, okay, they're playing. It's fine. But every practice thing, no, I don't think is a good idea.
And I'm not necessarily against the concept of the streaming service if that's the way for some parents to see it. I'm against the notion that you're going to actually penalize a parent who's that's the part that makes no sense to me at all.
That's ridiculous, but that shows the monopoly that company has in that spot.
There is some gray in this, and this is what I love talking about this kind of subject because that's what we pride ourselves on here. Example, Alan from Afton writes, we talk often out of both sides of our mouth on these issues. Parents complain about the cost, but the costs do reflect the realities of a local group running a business. So the only way for these local business people to survive is to sell out or they go out of business. Cost of everything done local incredibly high here in Minnesota. So what is going to happen? People will pay more to not have the corporate ownership, not likely. This is why we have Walmart. This is why we have Amazon and Target thriving and offering lower prices. In addition, right before him, Brent texted, I've talked to youth coaches on the East Coast, and it's rough out there. ICE is going for $1,000 to $1,500 an hour. Private entities buying up rinks, and if they don't turn a profit, shut it down, and community loses a rink. So those are some of the realities that we can't ignore in our righteous indignation about what, for example, Chris Murphy wrote, right? I mean, that's stuff that has to be dealt with. And as you say, maybe the gatekeepers here are doing a good job, relatively speaking, of hanging on to that and finding inventive ways, creative ways to do it so that the door is not opened to the Black Bears of the world or any other corporations that are involved in the same kind of activity. But this is part of the story.
Yes.
Right? It cannot be denied.
Well, I even think there was a story, and Strip Varsity just did a story about the youth costs that was along these same lines.
Yep.
But they also talk about how the super rink up in Blaine needs like $23 million to get their stuff up to new standards. The rink that they built in the 90s, they were hoping to attract the Olympics. It didn't work. The Mighty Ducks grant, it got some. It's interesting, but that's a good example of that rink needs $23 million. They got to get it from somewhere.
It's got to come.
And they're trying to get it from the state, and hopefully they get it because that's an important piece for a million different things.
Right.
Yeah, I've been up there for multiple sports: basketball, lacrosse, and hockey. And so, but that's especially with hockey and some of these indoor sports where you don't just need a field. You don't just need a blacktop. Right. You need everything else that comes along with it. There are significant costs, and that's kind of what I said. The Black Bear people are saying, well, all I know is this rink had cobwebs on it, and
now it exists.
You had 2 Mite teams, and we've got people here. So it is a double-edged sword in some ways.
All right, let's get a late break in. A couple more texts on this controversy. We got top 5 at 5 yet to come with a very late. Do we have any sound of the 2 quarterbacks?
I might. I've got some options to pull.
I don't think at this point we can ever have too much sound on Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy going forward. I'm serious. I mean, I think if we had a new soundbite every day, I think we should play it. Even if it means nothing, even if they're just talking because they have no choice, the microphone's put in front of them.
We could do that.
But we might as well get that started today. Back in a minute.
You're listening to Barrero on The Fan.
We're long overdue for our occasional Shohei Ohtani celebration segment.
What's he been up to?
Well, his projected, I should say his ERA entering his projected start today is 0.73.
That's pretty good.
According to ESPN, there have been 4 pitchers since earned runs became official in both the AL and NL in 1913 to enter June with a sub 0.75 ERA. That's pretty impressive. Somebody named Al Benton in 1945. Dave Ferris, also in 1945. Jacob deGrom in 2021 at 0.71. And Dutch Leonard all the way back in 1914.
Love Dutch Leonard.
0.72. He is at 0.73. Now, I don't think he's hitting as well as he's been hitting, by his standards at least, but his pitching continues to be otherworldly. Now, I don't know if it's a day game for him or a night game. I think it's a night game because this tweet's from... Or was this tweet from yesterday? I wonder, I'll double check if he pitched. I don't know if he maybe this is from yesterday, and we'll see if he's pitching tonight or pitched last night. That's pretty impressive. Shohei Ohtani.
Still working well for him.
It's working very, very well for him. Let's get to a couple of other texts here regarding our major subject of the 4 o'clock hour. A 612 guy asks you this: why does Gaardsy believe the state needs to step up and bail out the National Hockey Rink? Most other places survive with user fees and local taxes. They initially got lucky and got some of the Mighty Ducks fund, but I thought that they really didn't fall into a type of place that was eligible for those funds. Regardless, not sure if Minnesota needs to play or pay for a local facility.
Did I say that? I mean, I think I said I hope they get the money. I don't think I said the state necessarily has to.
You're one of those bailout guys. You're one of those.
I know.
Tax the rich Democrats. You just, let's just get more money from
Jeff Bezos could pay for it if he would just pay his fair share.
That's very true.
Yeah, he would just be.
A number of people are not buying the $1,000 an hour for ice in the East. They're saying that's a straight lie, more like $200, $250. I have no idea what would be right there. None of the numbers surprise me.
I mean, that's what, like, if we wanted to rent out our local rink for a birthday party, we're looking at $250 here. So I would think it's more expensive out there. I think it's closer to $1,000 than people want to think. And there's been a lot of reporting on that, too, I think.
Do pull tabs benefit youth hockey?
They do, usually.
Yeah.
Yes.
But not enough?
I don't know.
Kessler's a big pull tabs guy.
He is.
Talking about that, too.
Yeah, I do know that's a big part. There's a lot of different ways that associations can finance stuff. Volunteering at, volunteering to run bingo nights at bars. I know Edina Municipal Liquors, some of the money goes, every time you go to Braemar, they have the running total of how much the liquor stores have donated back to either the rink itself or the hockey association, whatever it is. They definitely do try to support it that way. Play pull tabs, people. Help our kids.
I was a Minnesota All-State baseball player in 1997. My parents loved me, but they didn't even go to our away regular season games. The only parents at away games were retired. Times are changing. And look, I'm not here to say you got to like apologize for showing up, but I'm even talking about, like I said, practices. People filming practices. Video. It's just
right.
You end up. I don't think doing your kid much of a service there, but part of it has to do. It's the helicopterization stuff, which we've discussed before on a number of levels. Some of it is related to that. It's almost the notion of, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I want to do it? Or am I doing this because now I think it's expected of me because all the other parents I know are doing it?
That's it. And trust me, kid guilt that you're not there when other parents are.
Yeah.
You have to fight that. And of course, if you can be there, and you
yes, of course,
games are different than practices. I basically told my kids here recently, like, we're not going to be at every practice. When you were 5 or 6 and you didn't know what city you were in, yeah, we were going to be there. But now that you're getting older, you don't need us there. You don't want us there. You shouldn't want us there, and we're not going to be there. Have I told you my parking lot deal that I came across recently when it comes to youth sports? I'm convinced.
I don't think so.
You know, in all these suburbs, no matter where you go, they've all got these sprawling. Blaine's a good example, right? Or the Eden Prairie Community Center. They've got a baseball field and swimming, and there's 3 ice rinks there. Minnetonka, we got everything right there. Edina, same thing. I'm convinced all of them were built in like the 90s or early 2000s, before parents, grandmas, aunts, uncles, friends all felt the obligation to go to all these things. Mm-hmm. Because one of the top 5 issues right now in youth sports, I think, is parking. Because there's never anywhere to park. But it's because everybody, a lot of them have roundabouts. Like Eden Prairie has a roundabout. Why? Because kids got dropped off when it was built. They got dropped off at the door, and then the parent just circled right back out, went back on, I think it's Valley View, and probably went to Tavern 4-5, right off of Highway 5. They didn't sit there in the rink watching practice. It came because the other day there was like a swim meet, a baseball game, and a hockey thing going on in Eden Prairie. There's no parking, but because everybody was there. It didn't used to be that way. Just a theory I have.
No, it makes sense because
I don't think we were grinding for spots in the 90s.
No, I think that's very true. Oldsmobile guy writes, I was shocked to jump in my car to hear the Karl Marx and Khrushchev proletariat hour. I, for one, am proud to have my... let me scroll down here. Proud to have my kindergartner soccer team sponsored by Berkshire Hathaway, BlackRock, and Blue Chew. Why do you hate capitalism? Dan. Very well stated. I thought that was very, very good. Stan from Minneapolis writes, Stan, I'm sorry I'm a day late, but my usual listening is via podcast. I struggled with your opening segment yesterday, focused on James Harden's statement about the better team. I think the entire subject deserves much more context than you gave it. How do you define better team? No doubt Knicks were the better team for the 4-game series, but Cavs blew a 24-point lead in the first game and led in the second quarter of the second game. Cavs won 6 of 11 season games from the Knicks. I think a short series can often have a better team losing. I don't even know what to stand. I appreciate podcasting. I don't even know what to say to you. He goes on to say, what was even more troubling for me was comparing 41 Donut to the best team. The Giants were the best team that day, no doubt. I think most reasonable people, including the odds makers, would say that no way did that game do justice to the quality of the Vikings. Well, Stan, I think you're thinking too hard on the 41 Donut. Mm-hmm. We were having fun with that. It was a device. It was just a starting point. But you're going to have to do better than a short series. If it was once upon a time, the NBA had a best-of-3 mini-series.
Did they really?
Yes. It didn't last long, but they did. Best of 5, maybe you can convince me that's a short series. The whole point of a series being best of 7 is to make sure that the better team wins, right?
That's the idea.
Unless you want to go, well, if we really want to do it, it'd be best of 11. You got to be practical about how far you can go. But the whole point of best of 7 is what I just said. Much better chance that you're going to give both teams a chance to figure out exactly what they are. So, no, I don't. I have no regrets about what I said about James Harden. You conveniently left out that despite that being, that having that, it was 22-point lead in the fourth quarter of game 1, what you conveniently left out was that from that point forward, that the Cavaliers were outscored by 99 points. I would also submit to you, did you watch the games? Did you watch Game 4? Eye test has to be a part of this conversation as well. And I get the bit on macho players and, it's a long, you learn more over season and for a given night. But that's the whole point. What separates the NBA's best of 7 or even Stanley Cup best of 7 is it's not best of 1. It's not best of 3. It's not even best of 5. It's best of 7. So for you to stand up as a veteran player, knowing all of that, and to deliver with a straight face after losing the last game by 37 at home, that you're going to be believed saying, hey, I'm clinging with it. We beat you guys a lot in the regular season. We're a better team. You're not going to be taken seriously. So, Stan, I would say, I just think you're overthinking it. The 41 donut had absolutely nothing to do with it. That we were playing. We were trying to play off what Harden said, and it's called trying to localize the story to our situations here. Let's take a quick top-of-the-hour break. Am I going to get my quarterback sound?
You're going to get 90 seconds of JJ, 44 seconds of Kyler Murray.
Does that mean you're already taking a position? Are you trying to fix this in favor of the incumbent, JJ?
I would say less is more.
Yeah.
We'll play a couple of sound bites there. We've got some NBA basketball to get to, and the Colorado Avalanche have plenty of time to rest up and get healthy before the Stanley Cup final.